Okay, so I got to talk about something that I saw on Facebook the other day. Somebody posted a list of national average prices for pressure washing, and I am sure they meant well. And this is what the post said. It said, "Hey guys, here's what ChatGPT says people are charging across the country." And the comments, of course, were exactly what you would have anticipated because it's Facebook, and it was a mixed bag. And I didn't comment until I started reading what other people were saying, like, "Oh, this is perfect. I will just use this." Or, "Thanks for this. I didn't know how to price." So if you are somebody that uses a national average price list that you got from the internet, please listen to what I'm about to say. Do not use it to price for your business. If you're using a national average to set your pricing, you're already doing it all wrong. And I'm not saying that to be a jerk. I'm saying that because I don't want you running your business into the ground before it even gets off the ground. So today I'm going to show you how to figure out your real hourly cost using Savannah, Georgia numbers, because that's where I am and because every place is going to be different. Cost of goods are going to be different. Markets are going to be different. I pay $2.80 per gallon for 10% SH. I pay about $2.91 per gallon for regular gas. I am sure there are different prices across the country on what you're paying. In fact, if you would, tell me where you're at and what you're paying for both SH and gas in the comment section down below so we can show how vastly different prices can be and really kind of emphasize the fact that national averages aren't the way to go. But like most guys, when I was starting out, I really had no clue what my numbers were and if I was actually making a profit or not. I figured if we went out, we washed house for $300, it was a good day, right? It had to be profitable. But also, like a lot of new guys and some of you that are watching right now, I wasn't factoring in a lot of things like my insurance, my gas, my maintenance, my time quoting jobs, the drive time in between jobs, or even taxes. And what happens is you think that you're making money, you think you have a viable business, but in reality, you don't. Then the truck breaks down, your pump goes out, insurance renews, taxes hit, and then suddenly that $300 house job doesn't look so great anymore. And that's why I want to break this down line by line for you, because once you know your hourly cost, everything else gets really simple, because when you know your numbers, that's when you can start quoting with confidence. You can set target profit margins. You can set goals for your business. You can track what it actually is happening in your business, and you can stop guessing and stop hoping that you're making money because now you actually know. And then you make adjustments if needed. So now let's talk about the setup, the equipment. And this goes for any kind of field or home service business or really any business at all. But for this example, we're going to be talking about a pressure washing setup. We're talking about a solo operator, no employees, no helpers, just you. You've got a truck, you've got a trailer, you've got some equipment. Now in Savannah, let's say your truck costs 20 grand. Now, that is a modest used work truck. It's enough to get the job done. It's not going to break the bank. Your trailer setup, probably about 15,000 once you've added your pressure washer, your surface cleaner, your hoses and hose reels, the tanks that you need, your soft wash setup, a proportioner, and then everything else that you need to do the job right, efficiently, effectively, and profitably. So that's about $35,000 worth of gear that's got to get paid for somehow. Now, if you figure the truck lasts for 5 years, that's $4,000 a year in depreciation. And the same obviously goes with your trailer as well, another $3,000 a year. So right off the bat, that's $7,000 a year just in equipment wear and depreciation. So now let's talk about insurance. So you've got your vehicle insurance. Got to have that, easily $1,200 a year. General liability, some guys try not to do that because they think it's too expensive. I highly encourage you to do that. That's about $1,500 a year. We carry workers' comp, which is about $960 a year. I'm not going to factor that in here because a lot of new guys, they don't necessarily need that quite yet. And if you live in an area like we do, it's the low country. We have to deal with hurricanes on occasion. You might also be required to carry inland marine coverage for your trailer and your equipment, maybe another $600 a year. Again, a prime example of how costs can be different in different places in the country. So now you're sitting at roughly $3,000 a year in insurance. So let's next talk about your operating expenses. So fuel. And this is where it kind of hits hard because we're using fuel every single day in the truck, in the machine, and we're constantly burning that fuel. So let's say you're working 5 days a week, averaging 3 jobs a day, and each day you're burning $40 worth of fuel between your rig and drive time. That's around $200 a week or $10,000 a year just in fuel. And of course, we're talking about a pressure washing business, so we've got chemicals. Maybe another $2,000 to $5,000 a year. Again, it depends on how busy you are and what kind of jobs that you're landing. Roof washing takes a lot more bleach, a lot more surfactant than, say, a standard house wash. Next up is maintenance for your machines, all the equipment that you got, right? The consumables as well. Oil, hoses are going to bust, chemical injectors are going to give out, surface cleaners might need a new swivel. So call that $1,500 a year for the maintenance side of things, the consumables. And then, of course, that truck is not going to maintain itself. Tires, brakes, oil changes, that's another few grand a year, easy. So now you're sitting at roughly $14,000 to $16,000 a year just to keep things running. And then, of course, we want to keep all that equipment running, so we need to think about customer acquisition. And this is where we add in marketing and the overhead that goes along with that. So you got to have marketing and advertising in place to keep the schedule full, obviously. So we have to account for that. You've got a website, hopefully a fully AI optimized site from BudgetBuiltSites.com, so your customers, they can find you, right? You're likely running some Google ads. Maybe you're boosting posts on Facebook. Maybe you've got yard signs or door hangers or flyers, whatever. There's got to be marketing to get those customers in. So let's call that $2,000 a year. That's the bare minimum, and really that's the bare minimum. You should be spending more. Regardless, you're also going to need a CRM, and of course, you're going to want to use QuoteIQ. The beginner plan is only $29.99 a month, but you want to make sure that you're keeping track of all of your numbers, your expenses, managing your customers, the jobs, the estimates, the invoices, getting paid, managing your schedule. Whatever it is, you need to have something in place to make all of that happen. It's very important, and a lot of people don't do that when they're first starting. And now we can take a look at where all of this is leading. So before you've even paid yourself a dime, your one-man business is already carrying around $26,000 to $27,000 a year in fixed cost. That means you have to make at least that much just to break even. Now, let's figure out how many billable hours that you actually have in a given year. Now, we all know that you're not going to be working 52 weeks straight. That would be great if you could. It's not going to happen because you lose weeks to rain, the slow season, maintenance, time off, quoting, and just the realities of life, right? You could get sick. You've got, somebody that dies. You got to go to a funeral, stuff like that. It happens. So we'll be generous and we'll say you're working 45 weeks out of the year, 5 days a week. That's 225 working days. So if you're doing 6 billable hours per day, because travel, setup, breakdown, they all eat into your day. That's 1,350 billable hours a year. So now we take that $27,000 in annual cost and divide it by the billable hours, 1,350. That's $20 per hour just to exist. That's before you pay yourself. That's before you pay taxes, before any profit. It is before everything else. So if you're charging $50 an hour, you're really only making $30 an hour. And that's if everything goes perfectly. And we all know stuff doesn't always go perfectly. And, if you've got a slow month, if you have a repair that comes up, or you have to replace a machine, or you have some big cancellations, that number can drop fast. And that is why it is so important to know and understand and track your numbers on a consistent basis. Now, let's say that you want to make $75,000 a year for yourself in take-home income. If you're working those 1,350 billable hours, that means you need to earn about $55.50 an hour just to pay yourself. Add that to the $20 an hour in overhead, and your total true hourly cost to run your business is about $75.50 an hour. But you're not going to be billing every hour that you're awake, right? You're going to be spending time quoting jobs, doing the administrative things, follow-ups, sending out the invoices. You're going to be answering the phone. You're going to be talking to customers. You're going to be driving to see customers, looking at properties. You're going to have your time wasted by tire kickers, unfortunately. So realistically, you might only bill 60% of your total working time. And to cover that gap, you need to bump your rates by another 65 to 70 70%. I like to bump them a little bit higher, but you do you. Now, you're at about $120 to $130 an hour minimum just to make that $75,000 income goal and cover your costs. And we can't forget about old Uncle Sam, who's going to get his cut. We got to pay taxes. You can't run from those. But that is your bare minimum hourly rate to run a healthy one-man pressure washing business in Savannah, Georgia. Input your numbers and you can see where you need to be. But anything below that for this scenario, and you're just spinning your wheels. Now, here is where I see a lot of people mess up. They look at Facebook groups, they look at Google, they look at other sources online, and they see that maybe somebody in Texas is charging $300 for a house wash, and they think that that is the standard. That is what they need to charge, and that is not the case. Because your insurance rates, your gas prices, your bleach costs, the cost of living, they're all different. What works for somebody in Dallas or California or Michigan might completely fail in Savannah, Georgia, and vice versa. And I'm lucky. I've got a supply house right down the road, L&H Industrial, and we can swing by anytime that we need bleach, parts, equipment, chemicals. This saves us time. It's less drive time. We're not waiting around for UPS because we had to order it. And forget about chemicals like degreaser and rust removers and surfactants. That stuff gets crazy pricey when you start adding all the shipping costs. That all goes to the overhead as well. All of these things impact your pricing and why you can't rely on national averages. Your business is different than mine, and you have to know your market. That means understanding your competitors' pricing, getting a feel for what customers expect, and adjusting your pricing to be both competitive and profitable. And this is very important. Don't undercut the market because you're the new guy. That is not helping you at all. It's hurting you and it's hurting everybody else in your market when you drive pricing down. So don't be that guy. So obviously, we're never going to price a job based on what somebody across the country is doing. And you really shouldn't base it on what your competition down the street is doing either. We all have different business models, levels of experience, and even the equipment and the processes that we use impact our profitability. Again, great for baselines, for guidance, but that's it. And if you really want to get more efficient, you should check out How to Wash 2, the complete guide for commercial and residential pressure washing and soft washing. If you want to cut the learning curve, get the best training, and gain the confidence to get out there and crush it from day one without wasting a ton of time trying to figure it all out on your own. 50% off right now. There is a link down below. Now, if all of this math sounds like a headache, it's because it kind of is, which is exactly why we built the hourly rate calculator into QuoteIQ. And this does exactly what we just did in this video with all of the calculations. You just plug in all of your costs, right? Your fuel, the insurance, loans, whatever it is, and it spits out your actual hourly rate. So you know exactly where you need to be in real time every single day. I even had our dev team put those national averages for about 15 different industries in the resource section of QuoteIQ. And this is not for you to copy, but for you to compare against and use as a baseline. It's not a shortcut. And so the bottom line here, everything that we just talked about is the difference between running a business and just owning a pressure washer. If you want to run a business that's going to grow, that's going to make money, you can't guess at this stuff. You need to stay on top of it from day one. And then once you get your pricing dialed in and you're comfortable with quoting, the next step is making sure that people can actually find you. And that's where BudgetBuiltSites.com comes in. These are websites that are built by AI to be found by AI. They are fast, SEO, GEO, and AEO optimized and made specifically for home service businesses just like yours. And if you don't have a website right now, you're leaving money on the table. And if you do have a website already, you need to get more digital real estate. Get another website up or two. I've got 4 going right now that focus on specific locations in my market and specific services that I'm trying to grow. Google AI Overview has changed everything, and now you can start ranking if you have the right website built for this new world of AI search. And then when those leads do start rolling in, you don't want to let them hit your voicemail. You don't want to let them go unanswered. We've all lost jobs because we were in the middle of a job. We were up on the roof. We were behind a house and couldn't answer the phone. And so what happens? They call your competition. They call the next number on Google. And that's why we have the AI call team, which is free for every QuoteIQ user. You just pay for the usage. It answers your calls 24/7, talks to your customers, qualifies the leads, and even quotes and schedules appointments for you so you never miss another opportunity to land a job. So to wrap this up, if you're new and you're trying to figure out what to charge, ignore the national averages. They don't know your market.